Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhaakumut takasur hatta zurtumul maqabir. Kalla sawfa ta'lamun. Summa kalla sawfa ta'lamun. Kalla law ta'lamuna ilmal yaqin. Latarawna al-jahim. Summa latarawnaha 'aynal yaqin. Summa latus'alunna yawma izin 'anin na'im. In the name of Allah, the Compassionate, the Merciful. Mutual rivalry in worldly increase has distracted you until you visit the graves. But no, you will know. Again, no, you will know. No, indeed, if you only knew the truth with certainty. You will see the blazing fire. You will see it with certain vision. Then on that day, you will be questioned about the pleasures you indulged in. Sadaqallahul Aliyyul Azim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
जी जज़ाकल्लाह कहमद साहब बड़ी खूबसूरत आयत का तिलावत फरमाया Okay, inshallah I'll begin. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغه مدحته القائلون وليحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفتن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا أجل ممدود فطر الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته ووتد بالصخور ميادان أرضه أول الدين معرفته ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خير المبشرين والمنذرين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل
على محمد وآل محمد
ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Dear host, I'm not able to share my PowerPoint. It's saying that it's disabled by the host. If there's a possibility, not that it's ultra essential, the PowerPoint is just a little guide. Not necessary, but let me see if I can.
Please try sharing it now.
Okay, I can share now. Thank you, Jazakallah Yunus Bhai. Excellent. And Momineen and Mominat, we continue in our discussions of Nahjul Balagha. Even last week, I did find myself guilty of not being able to move forward, and I have somehow spent a little bit of time in the beginning part. Now, there are a few reasons for that, and one of the primary reasons is that we're talking about the first step. And of course, as my elders know better than me, and this is primarily for the younger ones, but the first step is essential. That means if we take the first step as wrong, then everything else will be incorrect. And so the first step takes us to Siratul Mustaqim, and then we are upon that path. And Siratul Mustaqim is what we want to achieve. We know that the hadith has said, Ya Ali, Siratuka Siratul Mustaqim, and the holiest messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad,
صل على محمد وعلى
has said from his holy lips that, oh Ali, your path is Sirat al-Mustaqim, and that is the upright path, the straight path, the noble path, the honorable path, the path that Allah has chosen for us. He has presented us with many paths, but we must pick the correct path, and that is within our ability. With all our limitations, with all of our weaknesses, with all of our mortality and vulnerabilities, He has given you the most powerful ability. So when we realize our limitations, we also realize the blessing. And the blessing is, my young ones, you have the ability to believe. That is an incredible ability. That is more powerful than abilities we talk about nowadays. Nowadays, there is a fascination in the entertainment industry that likes to present movies and television shows. And the fascination is with superheroes. You see that in every decade, in every generation, we go through phases. And in these phases, we see what the fascination of people is, because these entertainment industries mass produce that which is wanted to be seen, that which viewership will be attained with, that which spectators will come to see and they will pay for. So what it does is, when you see these industries, you get an idea of how the world is thinking right now. It is amazing to me, our fascination with superheroes, this fascination with abilities to fly, to not be seen, to be invisible, to be fast, to be strong, to be very intelligent, all of these abilities. What's the most powerful ability? The most powerful ability is for you to say, I believe. This is powerful. This is something that He has gifted to you. That means that it is something that we think of as that which is to be discarded and something that is useless, but no, belief is very powerful. Therefore, if He has allowed you to choose, you can choose Sirat al-Mustaqim, the path of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. It also says, Ya Ali, Anta Siratul Mustaqim. In another narration, He points to him and says, oh people, look, Hada Siratul Mustaqim. That means that Imam Ali is the path. He follows the path and he is the path. That means that wherever he is, that is the path. Wherever he takes the step, that is the step to take. And if we in every namaz always say Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, we are saying in every prayer, oh Allah, guide us to Ali, guide us to the path of Ali alayhi salam. And what we're saying here is that when you guide us to that path, then we listen to him. And when we listen to him, the first step he has given us is Awwaluddin. So I cannot just pass by this line. If I'm counting correctly, this is our 4th session. This is around the 13th line of Nahjul Balagha. By now, I would have been into the second speech if I had followed my original plan. However, as this unfolded, I realized that the first step is essential. And if any of our young generation takes the first step correctly, everything else is laid out for them. And that is what the parents are worried about. That is what the burden is about. That is why I see so many people who are in this meeting with me every Sunday. They are my betters, my superiors. They are knowledgeable, more so than me and more practicing than me, yet they come. And they come because they see that there is something that needs to be transmitted to the next generation. And they want to find the voices to do that. And the reason is because they are carrying a burden upon their shoulders. The burden upon the shoulders of our parents, my young ones, is that they have received the greatest blessing from Allah. And the greatest blessing is this deen. The greatest blessing is the tenets of this faith. And therefore, if they have received it, and they have received it in such a pure way, that the way it was transmitted from the tongue of the holiest messenger to the heart of Amirul Mu'mineen, to the heart of Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, alayhim as-salam, and so on, it has passed by generations unchanged, unaltered, unmixed, pure. This has never happened, my young ones, with any religion. Understand the miracle that is held in your hands. Whether you look at any religion of any kind, you will see that as soon as the messenger slept, for that religion went on return to their Lord, what do we see happening? The religion changes, the religion changes, the basics change. What you have in your hands that is being brought to you in a pure faith is amazing. And this is something, and I see most of the people here from that Indo-Pak region, as myself hailing from Pakistan. And what I see is that we took that light that was in Medina, and our forefathers, the Sadat, and the Muhib and the Shias, they took this light from Medina and they protected it. They protected the Nur of Iman, and they went to Iraq. And there they were slaughtered, and they went to Iran. And they faced persecution, and they pushed on. And over the centuries, century after century, generation after generation, migration after migration, we ended up in, yes, India and Pakistan. And we became recognized from there because we did spend a lot of time there. That means that the centuries spent there became part of our identity, but it was not our complete identity. It was but one phase in the mass migration that has protected this faith and has spread it throughout the world. You coming to America now, some people, you know, they look at America, they're in America, they're in Canada, they don't sometimes find their identity. There's sometimes a conflict of cultures, there's a clash of interest. What do I follow? Who do I identify with? What am I really? Know yourself. That's very important, because Imam Ali salatu wasalam said, "Awwalu dini ma'rifatuhu," and that who is Qul hu Allahu ahad. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this same master who told us that this is the first step also said, Man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbahu. The one who knows himself knows his Lord. We must know oneself, himself, herself, oneself. That means we have to know this nafs. And then what happens is we start to know Allah. So the fascinating thing for me in this one line, because this line and these next few lines, these 10 or 12 lines here, I assure you, my young ones especially, they are life-changing. In other words, if nothing had reached you, we had not, maybe the tyrants had hidden everything like they've tried. Many ahadiths burnt, books and books burnt, many narration and events hidden from us. They tried to, they would have decimated the Quran if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had not protected it. I mean, if we had even received one of the things that we have, the many of, it would have been enough for you. If you had received, the Quran is a miracle. If you had received one surah of the Quran only, it would have carried all that you needed till Yawm al-Qiyamah. If you had received one khutbah of your A'immah, if you had received just these lines of Imam alayhi salatu wassalam, they would have definitely guided you for life, because they open up our eyes. When we see the one who is saying these words, when we see how magnificent they are, we realize that the one who's saying them has complete understanding of the universe. And when such a person is within your grasp, for you to learn what they said and how they lived their lives, nothing could be better. That is why all you have to do, my young ones, is present this. Any thinking mind will accept it. But what is most fascinating to me is that we see that the first step in Deen is to know him, but you can't do that until you know yourself. That is what's so important. This means you must know yourself to take the path of religion. But what has happened is many people become religious without knowing themselves. And this is the deviation. This is now where we are not on Sirat al-Mustaqim. This is where we become extremists. This is where we become fundamentalists, or whatever word you want to give. These are media words. I'm not a fan of the word extremist. Extremist has come to have a negative connotation. But if you are extreme in your love for Allah, if you are extreme in your humility, you are extreme in your worship, you are extreme in your compassion for humanity, those are beautiful extremes to have. So we must understand that, yes, media uses some words, but not relevant. Fundamentalist, well, your fundamentals should be strong. That means that what they call extremist really is ignorance. What they call fundamentalist, it has no fundamentals. So we have switched the meanings of words. That is ignorance, that is jahalat, that is terrorism. This happens when we do not know ourselves and we claim to know Allah. Because what we're doing is we're skipping a step. Step one, arafa nafsahu. Step two, arafa rabbahu. If you try to arafa rabbahu without arafa nafsahu, then what happens is you are not knowing your Lord. You are knowing something that you have just imagined yourself, made up yourself. It's not possible for you to start to understand Allah until you have reached some level of understanding of yourself. Now, I'm not saying that we have to live on the mountains and meditate 12 hours a day. We live our daily life. We face our life and the challenges within. But awwaluddin ma'rifatuhu. And therefore, know yourself and know your identity. You landing in North America, this is part of a migration process that started in Medina, and it started 14 centuries ago. That is part of you. That is what you are carrying with you. You are not alone. You are not a new generation in a new country with no ties to anything that happened before you. No, indeed. In fact, what you are is a sequence of generations, each one passing on this information to the next. Oh, my son, oh, my daughter, no, la ilaha illallah. No, Muhammadur Rasulullah. No, Aliun Waliullah. Wa Awladuhul Masumina Hujjajullah. And take this with you. And this is the tenet. And you made this oath and promise before you came to this world. You will be asked to answer for this afterwards. And the only reason you have parents who are telling you this is because Allah has chosen you. He has chosen to continue the gift through you. What you are doing is the work that the prophets did. They carried the message to the next generations. You have the same burden upon you. That means that you have to be ambassadors. You have to represent it. And you have to know that if you forego it, then you have not just allowed yourself to live your life the way you want to in so-called freedom, enjoying it or whatever you think is more important. But what you have done is you have wasted the blood of 1400 years of generations of Shia, of the Ahlul Bayt, who have sacrificed their families, their children, their blood, their wealth, their country, their homes continuously. This is a connection to Karbala. So this is our identity. You are connected to Karbala. The sacrifices that were made then are being made today. Your parents are not here for so-called freedom. Your parents are not here because they want to amass more wealth. Your parents are here because they want to be able to give you the true purpose of your existence without persecution and being killed for it, and so that you can pass it on. And do you see that the Imam Bargah becomes this flag that is found in every city of the world now, and it started in Karbala. So pardon me for digressing, but I want that message for my young ones to be known, because as they know themselves, they will know who they are. And when they know who they are, then arafa rabbahu. So therefore, we realize that it's a beautiful, beautiful path that Allah has chosen for you. Because in this path, the first step is we have to know ourselves. And that is what we say when we talk about arafah, ma'rifat. So we talked a bit about ma'rifat yesterday and how it is attained, last Sunday, and how it is attained. And then we also talked about the end result of ma'rifah, the kamal of ma'rifah. When we say kamal, we mean that it is the peak, it is the zenith. It is also that which manifests the next step. That means if someone has ma'rifah, they will do tasdeeq. Tasdeeq becomes the then of the if of ma'rifah. If there is ma'rifah, then there will be tasdeeq, if then. So this means that to actually say, La ilaha illallah, that is tasdeeq. And when we do that with ma'rifah. If we don't have that, then that is where we will digress. We will misunderstand the religion. We will develop within us hatred. You will see that people who sometimes walk on this path without knowing themselves, what happens? Arrogance, intolerance for others, judgment of others, We think we are the best now. We are following the religion. Everybody else is wrong. Our compassion for others and their mistakes becomes very, very limited. And now we want to enact punishment upon other people. And then they go to extremes where, I mean, we see what happens then. Then they have nothing to do with Allah or the religion now. Now they are on some strange satanic path where they just want to destroy things. So this tells us that the first step is we must know ourselves. Then we say La ilaha illallah. And I want to talk a bit about this La ilaha illallah, because La ilaha illallah is very important, and it's the first kalima, and it is the first step of it. Because when you do kamal of tasdeeq, that means the kamal of La ilaha illallah is tawheed. Wa kamalu tasdeeq bihi tawheeduhu, his tawheed. Who is a pronoun for him and his tawheed. Tawheed is oneness. Tawheed is uniqueness. Tawheed is onlyness. He is the only one in that state. He is unique. There is none like him. When we say La, this is not a small word. It's 2 letters in Arabic. It's 2 letters in English as well, no or none, but it is a very, very powerful word. And that is the word that Allah wants you to use more, which might sound strange perhaps, to use more. And I don't mean when people come to you for help, you say no. When people want your time, your energy, they need assistance, we say no. I mean saying no to things that Allah wants you to say no to. You will notice that He has given you this ability to say no, and now He wants to see, will you say no? So somebody comes and offers you something, do you accept it, but you know it's haram, or do you say no? Thoughts in your mind, actions, ideas. When do we say no? When you say La ilaha illallah, you are saying no ilah. There is no God, no deity, no divinity, no ilah, but Him. La ilaha illa. And illa becomes the accept. This accept purifies everything now. So what happens is we have to look around us at anything that might be considered to be a God, and we say La. And that is what Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam demonstrated to us. So he was showing the people in a very nice, acted out way. This is as he was doing this, and anybody who was watching and anybody who had common sense would understand the reasoning that he was presenting to them. And they would also say La ilaha illallah. So you look to the star and you say, no, my Lord cannot be that which falls. You look to the moon and you say, no, my Lord cannot be that which waxes and wanes, or the sun which sets and rises. No. So La ilaha, La ilaha. And what happens is, there's something that you achieve with La ilaha, which is when you say La ilaha, you're actually talking about something that you can behold, you can understand, you can idealize, you can manifest in your mind, conceptualize, and then you're saying, no, He is greater than that. So this is not Allah, Allah is greater. This is not Allah, Allah is greater. That means that your tawheed will be different from other people's tawheed, because it depends upon our understanding of Him. And that means it is something that needs to increase. And therefore what we see is, when you look around you, there are different levels of things that you can deny. For example, some people thought animals to be gods. You can deny the animals and say, La ilaha illallah. No, Allah is greater than the animals. Some people thought humans to be gods. You can deny the humans and say, no, Allah is greater than them. Then some people thought the mountains and the oceans to be gods. You can deny them. Sure, they're great structures. And then some people thought the sun, the stars, and the moon. So you can deny them and find something greater. But my young ones, do you see that you, in your unique position of knowing the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, have the ability to see the greatest of the greatest that Allah has presented to the universe? That means it is one level when you say Allah is greater than this animal, one level when you say Allah is greater than this human. He is not, Fir'aun is not Allah. There's one level, people denied Fir'aun, so then they became believers. There's one level you say, no, it's not the mountains and the oceans or the stars and the sun. But when you look at the Ma'asumeen, alayhim salam, their nur, their jalal, their qudrat, their azmat, their ismat, you know, their vilayat, and you see all that Amir al-Mu'mineen is able to do in his miracles, in his words, in his speeches, in his daily living. And you say, I have never seen anything more magnificent than these 14. There is nothing that is more perfect than these 14, but Allah. That is where you're now achieving a higher ma'rifat of Tawheed. This is why, in order to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first step, awwaluddini ma'rifatuhu, yes, but before that you have to understand yourself. And then when you want to attain his ma'rifah, the way you will do it, as Imam Ali will show us in these next few lines as we continue, is to do it through understanding the Ma'sumin and saying that Allah is greater. And the higher you take the Ma'sumin in your mind, the higher then above that will be Allah. So what you do is you limit your tawheed when you limit your knowledge of the Ma'sumin. If we block out the miracles of the Ma'sumin, the faza'il, the merits, what they have done, we are in essence blocking our progress in the ma'rifat of tawheed. Therefore, it is a very dangerous movement now. This is the movement that you see that is going to prevent our ma'rifah of tawheed. In this day and age, when we should be at such a high level of ma'rifah. Why? Because now the science has opened our eyes. If you go back to the time of even any of the prophets, even up to the last most beloved messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what you will see is magic was the main counter. So when something happened, they said, oh, that's magic. If the prophet did a miracle, oh, that's magic. How are they going to counter the prophethood and Islam? With magic. Now it's science. Thanks to Imam Jafar al-Sadiq salatu wassalamu alayhi and his students and the spark they created in the world, causing a renaissance, causing an enlightenment period, science boomed. So Islam caused the boom of science. After this, what happens is now everything is based on science, and it should become easier for us now to understand Allah's magnificence. We understand now the sun is not a god, the sun is a ball of hydrogen and helium, for example. So, you know, we understand microscopic organisms, we understand unseen cellular phone waves and light waves and sound waves. All of this metaphysical for us, it opened up a world of what was metaphysical. We thought of it as unseen, but the microscope and various technology allowed us. This means that now we should understand him better. But do we? No, we don't. In fact, if you look at the arguments and the discussions on Tawheed that were done 1400 years ago between the Sahaba of our Aimma, alayhim salam, and you know, the discussions were very high level. We are maybe there, some people, but most have digressed. We've fallen further away. So why is that happening? This tells us that it's happening because we are not going through the step-by-step process. And there is a movement to say that the fazail of the Ma'sumin are useless. Oh, they did this, they did that. How does that help me? Yes, they're great. I have heard these words. That is why my heart bleeds. I've heard these words. I've heard it said, yes, I know they're so great, but what should I do? That means that we have not realized the purpose of our existence. Because when I hear they are great, I'm admiring their magnificence. Then I'm admiring Allah. How great is He, therefore? Allahu Akbar. And therefore, then I am fulfilling my purpose of existence. And therefore, I'm elevating myself. You will feel it inside. That means that what you get is something that you feel. So you walk out of the majlis after listening to the fazail of the Ma'sumin and you feel it. It has changed you forever. So that is why it's so important to say La ilaha illallah. And this La ilaha illallah is a denial of everything that can be seen. This is not Allah. That is not Allah. So as we are going through this, what we see is that Allah is the one who is ghaib, which is true. We do say Allah is ghaib, but ghaib is something which is unknown, unseen. Sometimes the synonym is divine. I put some other synonyms here: secret, hidden, metaphysical, supernatural, absent. All of this is fine. Ghaib, that is Allah, true. But Allah is not ghaib like we are, like one of us might be ghaib. Like someone is not here right now, we could say they are absent. Or you do not know somebody yet, you have not been introduced to them, you could say they are unknown. Or there is something that is a secret hidden from you, you could say it is ghaib. True, but Allah is not ghaib like that. It is not that it is ghaib from, that kind of ghaib is ghaib from our knowledge. So we have a certain amount of knowledge, and some things are zahir in our mind, and some things are ghaib. Some things are evident, apparent, manifest, and visible. That becomes zahir. However, when you look at your mind, what you see is that it's limited in what will be apparent inside, and there is more that is hidden than is known. Therefore, that's important to realize, that in our humbleness, we hopefully attain that humbleness by realizing there's so many light waves, but I don't see all of them. So many sound waves, I don't hear them. So many things floating in the air around me, gases and other microbial organisms that I do not see. So if I do not see these, therefore I am limited in my capacity, but they are there. In the same way, Allah is everywhere, but I cannot see him. If I cannot see his creations that he has hidden from me, then how can I see the creator? It will be impossible, for I do not have the sensors, the apparatus to detect that, the sight to see him, the ears to hear him. His ghaib is such that he is hidden in a way that he is most manifest. That means he is hidden from your senses, but it is so obvious that he exists. He is wajibul wujud. His existence causes the existence of all. Therefore, his existence is apparent in every little entity. And that is why Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam said, I have not seen any shay. A shay in Arabic is any entity, any being, anything that is in existence. It is a very abstract word that encompasses kull, encompasses everything, kullu shay. And Amirul Mu'mineen says, I have not seen any shay in which in the batin, I have not seen Allah. In the zahir, I have not seen Allah. In front, I have not seen Allah. Behind, to the right, to the left, above and below, everywhere he sees Allah. Because in every particle, it is evidence of his existence. So he is more manifest than any of us who can be seen and heard and touched and smelt. We are manifest, but he is manifest through every particle that is manifest. But his zahir is in a way that cannot be detected. So he is very much hidden. What an amazing, we don't even know what word to use. What an amazing creator we have. And so therefore, it's become so important to purify ourselves. This means that, as we were right over here, so we will start to think about his oneness. Now we are contemplating his oneness. My young ones especially, my elders and my betters, I follow their path. My young ones, as you take upon this path, we need to realize that you are, first of all, knowing yourself. Then you will start to know Allah. And as you start to know him, you will know him through the Masumin. And as you start to know him, you will think about his oneness, for his oneness is very important. This means that in sending the Masumin and manifesting them to the universe, he caused himself to be known. But he also made them manifestors of his attributes, but different from him. Different from him. That means as we start to learn about their magnificence, what happens is we start to think, are they Allah? We have to realize Allahu Akbar. Therefore, it is very important at every level of ascendance of your marifa of the Masumin, because at every stage you will be more amazed. And you will say, I did not even realize that was possible. And then you will find out more about them. And at each step, you have to keep on saying, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar. These are evidence that you are on the right path, that you are not confused. But it starts with knowing yourself. If you do not know yourself first, we will get confused. I always come back to myself as I'm trying to move forward in this path of deen, as we should all try, because we all want to improve every day. Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, as-salatu was-salamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, said in one of the most magnificent sentences uttered, that if you could write it on your heart, and he said that if your today is the same as your tomorrow, then is that life worth living? Every day we must improve. He has given us a sunrise to show you a new day, to show you that you must improve in the steps. You must take one more step up to the next ladder. And as you come to the next ladder, what happens is confusion. And so you have to come back. What are signs and symptoms that perhaps I need to take a few steps back, know myself better, and then move forward to arafa rabbahu? My young ones, you will find signs and symptoms. One of the signs and symptoms is takabbur. Takabbur. And what is the best sign of takabbur? When one says, I don't have takabbur. So when you say, I don't have takabbur, that is the first sign that I do. And therefore, what happens is, it is in everyone. It is simply a matter of identifying it and crushing it, for it is the ultimate test. That is why astakbarta am kunta min al-'alin. Allah asks, subhanahu wa ta'ala asks Iblis, when he is asked to prostrate to Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, along with the rest of the angels, and he says, astakbarta, were you arrogant? He was arrogant. Because he said it as well. He said, astakbara wa kana min al-kafirin. Allah asks Iblis the question, but he also answers it for us. He says, astakbara. Yes, he did takabbur. He was someone who thought he was greater than he was. He did suffer from arrogance. Wa kunta min al-kafirin. And then he became amongst the kafir. So arrogance blinds us. Arrogance prevents us from growing. Arrogance is our worst enemy. And as we are purifying and understanding ourself, then arrogance is going to be there. Every day we must stamp it out. And every step we take, the test of takabbur becomes more difficult. As your knowledge, your ilm, your hilm, your iman, as these things increase, and as people, respect you more because of your deen, all of this is going to cause more testing of you. This means that the one who is not practicing their religion is going to have a smaller test of takabbur. The one who starts to practice it will have more of a test. At every step, it will become more difficult. And there will be more Satans to tempt you. Did you know that in Al-Kafi, in Babul Iman, I read a very strange narration. I was so surprised. It said that Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, as-salatu was-salamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, says that, I'm looking at the watch and the time is flying, but let us continue nonetheless. And what he says is that as you increase in your levels of Iman, there's a beautiful long narration in which he talks about 7 steps of Iman and 7 steps in each. He gives 49 levels of Iman. There's also the 10 level of Iman classification that we have heard in narrations, and this is a little more detailed into 49 steps. And he says that with each step, Allah increases the Satans that will tempt you tenfold. Then next step, 100-fold. Next step, 1,000-fold. It is very strange to me. I put the book down and I started to think, why is Allah increasing the number of Satans that are coming to tempt you? Every human is born with 2 children of Satan. They will always be there. They are talking to us. They are whispering to us. They will whisper things that will appear as thoughts in our heart. And as that happens, the only way to throw a stone at that and prevent it is to identify it. It's a big topic in itself, my young ones, but you need to know that in the path of self-analysis, what's going to happen is you will start to realize that there are 3 sources of all of your thoughts, and being able to distinguish is important. So what happens is we see Bibi Hajra alayhi salam, when Hazrat Ibrahim is going to give the test with Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam, what do we see happening? We see that the Satan comes to tempt. Iblis comes to Bibi Hajra alayhi salam. What does she do? She throws a stone at him because she recognized him. That same Iblis came to many people in Medina at the time of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. They didn't recognize him. We have to recognize them. We have to identify how catastrophic will be our actions if I cannot know when is the waswasa of Iblis and when is it my own thought. And I said there are three. My young ones know this is a big topic in itself, and of course as we continue I'm juggling with what to discuss and what not to, but briefly I am touching on many things, and one of them is this, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can grant to Iblis certain powers. And what did Iblis ask for? Give me the power to do waswasa. I want to be able to whisper to them. Give me the power to have long life. And also I want two of my children with every one of them. So he wants a bigger number. And Allah grants him the power. Why does Allah grant him the power? With no problem, no difficulty. Sure, your enemy. How mighty is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes my young ones, especially to the children, if there's any, because I did get some wonderful feedback that there are some young ones listening, some teenagers, high schoolers, some children. And so even if one ear receives this and passes it on, it is the nijat for us. It is the nijat for all of the great people in this meeting who are trying to get this nur of iman, this nur of vilayat onto the next generation. And I ask you this, if Iblis asked for these things, how did he know about them? In other words, when you ask for ability, let's say my young ones, they sometimes, some of them like to indulge in watching superheroes and seeing these things. And so someone comes to you and says, hello, what ability would you like? You can stop time, you can fly, you can be invisible, you can do this, that. All those abilities you're going to think of are based upon things that we know. They're based upon things we have seen, or we take them and we analyze them and we take knowledge from knowledge, but it's based upon something we either know about or see or theorize. So how did Iblis ask for these things unless they were already there? That means there must be somebody who has these abilities. There must be someone who can also guide your heart, as Iblis wants to misguide you. There must be someone who can also live longer than Iblis, and therefore understand that Iblis, in this, especially in Western media, cartoons our children watch. Beware of one thing, adults, especially parents, dear parents, when your children are watching some cartoons and there's religious connotations in there, sometimes there's a silly misconception that is presented, and many of our children walk away thinking that is true. And that is that the opposite of Allah is the devil. Allah and then devil, God and then devil, and we put them opposite each other like they are fighting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no opposite. He is above and beyond everything. But yes, he has infinite creations, and in his infinite types of creations, one of them is jinn, and he has infinite jinn, and in his jinn, one of them is Iblis. So it's very important to completely get that idea out of the mind of young children, of somehow having opposite. Imam Ali Raza salatu wassalamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. One of my favorite lines that I've heard for Tawheed, this line, it brings tears to my eyes. How can anybody listen to this and not know that these people are incredible? And he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created opposites of everything to know that he has no opposite. He created likenesses of things to know that he has no likeness. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no opposite. Therefore, my young ones, if Iblis can do the whispering to you, your Imam can do the ilham to you. If Iblis can live forever, your Imam has been there forever also, making sure that he counters that. That is why, Allah has means and mechanisms to protect you. And you should know that as you rise higher up, the reason why he allows more Satans to tempt you is because he is very confident in you. And therefore, it is said that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the moment is of a high level, and thousands of Satans come to tempt him, and they're whispering to him, sleep, sleep, sleep. The azan of Fajr is on, and that moment wakes up. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does fakhr upon his angels and says, look, thousands of angels, thousands of Satans will tempt him every moment of the day, but he will stick on the true path, for he is my slave. He is the one who believes in me. So therefore, we see that as you get higher and higher in level, there will be more tests, and these more tests will be the test of takabbur, arrogance. If you notice that in you, immediately know that it's okay. It happens to all of us. Take 2 steps back and start over. None give a higher test of takabbur than the ulama. Iblis's test of takabbur was high as well, because he had been made the chief of a horde of a group of angels, and that battalion of angels used to call him their chief, and he used to lead them in prayer, and he used to give them speeches, in khutbah after namaz, and so he was their teacher. So in the same way, you will see that, your ulama as well, and the ones who have gained a very high status, the ones whom people rush to their feet, they have a very high test of takabbur. It is not easy at all. When you have people willing to put your shoes in front of you, carry everything for you, not let you do anything, make sure their test is very difficult. We have to slowly rise. And so every time we step forward and we see arrogance, how will you know? If you think you're not arrogant, you will know. Also, intolerance for other people. If you feel your love for other people increasing, yes, you're going good. If you feel intolerance and hatred increasing, maybe not. So then we have to take 2 steps back, know ourselves, and then move forward. So I wanted to stress on that a lot today, because what happens is, as you start to know his oneness, you need to know yourself first. وَكَمَالُ تَوْحِيدِهِ الْإِخْلَاصُ لَهُ. I've gone over my time. I do like to, as we had planned to keep it to these 45 minutes. And so I will continue, inshallah, next week, because I want to talk about, next week, I want to talk about attributes. And I want to talk about man arafa nafsahu. So to understand Rabbahu, we need to understand nafsahu, and that's what I want to do tomorrow. I want next Sunday, open up the steps to knowing yourself and the questions we need to ask ourselves for that. So with this, I will pause here. Thank you so much for your dear attentions, for tolerating this ignorant one. It's always such an honor for me to spend this time with you. And before we go, we'll, of course, for a couple of minutes, at least, we should always, in every day, my young ones, always remember Imam Hussein every day. Remember Imam Hussein in all of your prayers. Before you go to stand for prayer, think of Imam Hussein. When you finish your prayer, think of Imam Hussein, because your prayer is there because of Imam Hussein, and everything we have is because of his sacrifices. And therefore, we need to always remember the plains of Karbala. And there was a farewell that breaks my heart. I have never seen such a farewell ever given. And the farewell was when the Lion of Allah, the Imam of our time, the beloved of Bibi Zahra and Imam Ali, the younger brother of Imam Hassan, was lying upon the plains of Karbala. Every time, the parents like me will understand, every time we leave our home, the children might come to us, and the children might come to us and say, "Ke Baba na jaiye, maa na jaiye, aap बहुत याद आएंगे, आप ना जाइए." उस वक्त बड़ा मुश्किल होता है वालिदैन के लिए अपने बच्चों को छोड़ना, जब अगर बच्चे खास तौर पे रो रहे हों। लेकिन जब हम जाते हैं, हमको पता है बच्चे महफूज हैं, घर में हैं, हम वापस आ जाएंगे। लेकिन बीबी सकीना जब इमाम हुसैन के सर से लिपट गई थी, इमाम हुसैन के सीने से लिपट गई थी और कह रही थी, "बाबा ना जाइए, ये हुसैन का ही दिल है।" ऐसी ऐसी अलविदाई कायनात में इससे पहले ना हुई ना इसके बाद हुई जो इमाम हुसैन और बीबी सकीना की अलविदाई थी। किसी को मैंने नहीं देखा कि मैदान जंग तैयार हो, ज़रा बांधी भी हो, तलवार नयाम में हो और उस दश्त बला पर लेट जाए और उसी ज़रा पर अपनी नन्ही सी बेटी को लिटा दे। और इमाम हुसैन ने किस तरह से लोरी दे के उस वक्त सकीना को सुलाया। इमाम वक्त थे, जानते नहीं थे कि क्या क्या नहीं होगा। उन मासूम गालों को देख के ये सोचा नहीं होगा बाबा ने कि हाँ एक वक्त आएगा सकीना कि अब ये गाल शिमर की तमाचों के जद पे होंगे। तब इमाम हुसैन ने थप्पी दी होगी कमर पे तो ये ना सोचा होगा कि अब ये नाजुक सा बदन होगा और शिमर के ताजियाने होंगे, अब ये पसलियां होंगी, लेकिन ये मेरी माँ ज़हरा की तरह मेरी बेटी की पसलियां भी सालिम नहीं रहेंगी। फसयअलमुल्लज़ीना ज़लमू अय्यम मुनक़लबिन यनक़लिबून अला लअनतुल्लाहि अलल क़ौमिज़ ज़ालिमीन।
Jazakallah, Moulana, for enlightening us with all the informative lecture. And Alhamdulillah, Allah give you health and your family and your mother, especially long life and healthy life. Inshallah, we are going through a very pandemic and new variants coming, and how to be strong in this, and how to be active. So Alhamdulillah, also the participants and their families. And just recently, my sister-in-law's brother passed away, Sayyid Jamil Hassan Musavi. So we ask all of you to Surah Fatiha for him, and also the family members of the participants. And Allah give you long life, Maulana, for on this Sunday, when most of the people will be sleeping in North America, to give us this, and also in few we shed few tears from our eyes to remember Imam Hussein and propagate the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. So it is our responsibility to spread this message. Jazakallah. Any question and answers? The participants, please
Yeah,
come forward, and anything you have to say, please. Any suggestions? Any?
brother Sayyid Hadi had raised his hand.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Yes, brother, Assalamu alaikum. Thanks. Yours was an excellent, exciting lecture. One thing I've noticed when I interact with the youth of say about 15 years to 25 years age, when you tell them anything, for example, I tell them let's go to prayers for Juma, let's eat food here, let's watch this particular Islamic movie, let's do this thing, let's have, let's shave our beard, shave our beard actually. Things like that, when you say anything whatsoever, which has 1% relationship to in their code world of religion, anything, instant answer is, I know it. This has been a kind of a cliche I've noticed in youth, not in my family, but all over in North America. So I want to ask you a question. Why this generation of youth, which is different than the generation of ours, is saying, I know everything. I know it. I know it. I know it. But still, they keep persisting and doing the same thing which they want to do. In a way, they want us to say that, oh, stay away from me. This is my way of doing it. I will do this way. So how to stop this cycle of, I know it?
Well, yes, absolutely. What a Jazakallah bhai, and what a beautiful observation. And definitely, this is something that we see in the new generation. Very true, as you said, and more in this generation. I think that as we were growing, there were perhaps sometimes, you know, people who grew up in more Eastern cultures, I found that you're right. There is instilled within them an obedience for parents, a respect for them, and almost a realization, a fascination and awe that they are the elders and they are in command and whatever they say is right. And there's almost a blind belief as well, which was very useful. Now what we see is that there is not that blind belief. And also there's more of a protest. I think one reason is also the Western brought up is a little different, quite different. There are many advantages to the schooling in Western Hemisphere. We see, you know, the sciences and the concepts, the way they're taught are very good. They teach children to think. They teach them to have confidence and to be independent. And all of that is nice. And there's a promotion of individuality, and all of that is nice. But we lose the balance of community. So I feel that the communal feeling is destroyed then, as the individual becomes the primary source of importance, and everything should be based on them. So that's one thing I think our children face here, that some of us that might have gone for schooling in previous generation or in other parts of the world, Indo-Pak, etc., we didn't face that. The confidence they give the children here, the individuality and the promotion to question, this is what brings about many great things, but also when it's out of balance, it brings this problem. And so how to counter it is not easy. Also, these children now have more information available to them. And also they are facing new technology and new environments that their parents have not faced. Therefore, their parents are not as equipped to deal with it because of the big change. Therefore, our job as parents becomes very challenging. So one thing we have to keep in mind is that our children are being promoted in individuality. And we have to balance that by promoting community thinking, by promoting sense of belonging, by realizing that, sure, you are important and you should do things that make you happy, but there's other people around you that are important. And it should be, your life should be spent in a way that they are more important. And so that is, you know, one thing we have to do to counter it. The other thing we have to do is we have to realize the environments they are in, and we have to try and see what they are dealing with. Because some of us, you know, we grew up in a generation, you know, in different generations where we knew what the temptations were. We knew what was out there. We knew कि अगर ये वहाँ जा रहा है तो वहाँ पे उसको ये चीज जो है ना ये गुनाह हो सकता है, वहाँ पे ये गुनाह हो सकता है. We had an idea. We had you know, our neighbors saying कि ये देखो आपका बच्चा वहाँ पे नजर आया था, जरा ख्याल रखिएगा. Nowadays we can't do that, and also we need to be more aware. So we need to be aware of social media. We need to be aware of everything our child is seeing and doing. And that is very difficult because our lives have become very, very busy. So to be able to do that now, from, you know, the dear Momin Sayyid Hadi, I can see that's somebody who is doing it, who is dedicating their time and is achieving success, but they are finding some obstacles along the way. So I in no way mean to tell them what to do, but just outlining the basics that I think are important. And then also what happens is, if they're saying, I know, then, you know, we have to, I think sometimes, spend a little time with them and analyze them, and we have to get to know them. Then what happens is, the more time we are able to spend with them and discuss with them, we can help them to start to think, because they're not thinking about it. When they say I know, that is not a statement of knowledge. That is not, yes, I know because I have studied this, I have meditated, contemplated it, I've spent months or years knowing it, and so now I know. No, you're right. That is a pushing it away. That means what's happened is they're pushing something away because they don't want it. Why don't they want it? Because that is the zahiri shakl of deen, or something to them that has become, you know, what they want to avoid because it's boring. That's probably the main reason why it's boring, you know. And so whenever my children say this is boring, I love it when they say that. Any child that says this is boring, I say, come sit down. Let me talk to you for a little bit. I ask them, what is boring? What do you mean by boring? And so on. So we have to try, and eventually they realize that what is boring is what they don't understand. And so I think that we have to take the first step. So maybe in the first step, let's not do the man arafa rabbahu, let's do the man arafa nafsahu. So if the child doesn't want a certain, Islamic act or, something that we're motivating them to do that will bring them closer to Islam. Let's see what they are lacking in knowing about themselves. And then we have to deal with the psychology of that first. So we have to talk to them and see what they're missing in understanding themselves. And then those other things will come later. Sometimes we look at the signs of deen. Iman ki nishaniya, the famous hadith, the aqiq ring, the 51 rakat namaz, the saying Bismillah out loud. We have various signs. And the interesting thing is that in medicine, when we study signs of disease. And these are signs of Iman. But signs of disease are like cough and fever. And cough and fever is not the disease, it's the sign of the disease. You must have the disease first to get the sign of the disease. Do you see that some people take the signs of Iman? They say, I will have a tasbih in my hand, I will have the beard, I will have the mark on my forehead, or I will do this many namaz, and so on. But they don't have the arafa nafsahu yet, or the arafa rabbahu, so they haven't gone on the awwaluddin. They haven't gone to the first step of deen. So therefore, we have to instill inside, and then we will start to see the signs. So I tell my young ones, I'm glad you're wearing the aqiq ring. I'm glad you're praying 51 rakat. You're saying Bismillah out loud. You are saying salam whenever you see a moment. You stand up for them. You are manifesting the signs of deen. But you should know that if the deen is installed inside, the signs automatically show. If one it's a bad opposite example, but if one has a disease, they will have fever. If they have a bacterial infection, they will have the cough and the runny nose and so on. So that means that the one who has Iman will yearn to wear a ring, yearn to pray 51 rakats. They will long to do those actions. It becomes automatic, I think. Pardon me, I
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Alhamdulillah, you did excellent in explanation. But one thing, as you said, is absolutely true, is that this is totally unbalanced. Because what happens is when the same kids, the same youth go to classroom, they do not say to their teacher, I know it. At the same time, when the same youth goes to, for example, a donut shop or McDonald's for doing a part-time job, he never says, I know it to his boss. So this is totally imbalanced approach only towards parents or maybe elderly members of our society. Thanks.
Absolutely, you're right. Which once again shows that it's not about not knowing, it's about they're pushing this away.
Respect for the parents. And Sayyid Hadi, he's an accountant, if I'm not mistaken. He used to live in Toronto. He's a chartered accountant, alhamdulillah. He comes from a very educated family. And nice to see you, Brother Hadi, after a long time.
Thank you, brother. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Yes. We want you to get your kids involved in this. Let them come and listen to this, Maulana. Sometimes when you tell so many things since the young age to the adult age, they are listening from one ear and the other ear is gone. So someone else, like the education of the Maulana with solid background from the Quran, gives the backing of the ahadith and the knowledge from the Quran, it has more weight to it. So please approach the Maulana. If you have any questions, bring them here and let them listen to this. And then we go from there. Another thing is, before I give this to our brother Salman Wadudi, he is our well-known brother in Toronto, and alhamdulillah, I want you to give some light or the our responsibility to preach the sayings of Ahl Bayt. Can you come in, brother Sulaiman Wadudi, please, if you are there?
And if he's not, there is one more person. Rifat Salim has his hand raised. Perhaps.
Okay, Rifat Salim, please.
Yeah, my son is asking you a question. Just give me a second.
Yes.
Okay, so the question is, if God already knows what his beings are going to do before they do it, what actions they're going to do, then how do we have choice in life if everything's fixed and he already knows who's going to end up in heaven and who's going to end up in hell?
Moulana? Hello?
Unable to hear.
Yeah, I don't see Moulana here.
No, Maulana is there. He's saying, but we are unable to hear.
Sorry
His
about
phone
that.
is cut off. Moulana,
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Jazakallah, pardon me. I had muted myself and then forgot to unmute. Jazakallah, Beta, for the great question, mashallah. Very important question, and often one of the things that I think any of us who are trying to understand Allah will think about this. So, and the question is a very straightforward one, but an important one, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already knows what I'm going to do today, so I will commit this sin, I will not commit this sin, I will do this, amal of sawab, I will perform this prayer. So at the end, when I'm standing on the day of judgment, everything I have done that I should have done, or I did that I shouldn't have done, and so on, all of my deeds are being accounted for. And as I'm looking at these deeds, I'm thinking to myself, well, Allah knew all of this was going to happen anyway, so why not fast forward and let's just end up over here? Which is interesting as a question, because, you know, when we look at ourselves as well, what happens is in our daily interactions with each other, when we have knowledge about something that is going to happen, then we protect each other from it. We learn from it. And if I know that so-and-so will make this mistake and it's going to cause them this problem, I say, wait, don't do that. So because of this, you know, the way we interact socially, we're applying it there. Now, there's one question I would want to put into this question, and that is, if I perform a certain action and Allah knows I'm going to perform it, does that affect my choice? In other words, if I'm going to choose this action and I know that Allah knows and Allah knows that He knows, will that affect my choice or not? My choice is still independent. Whether I choose to do something or don't choose to do something, I still have the power to enact my choice. If a parent knows their child and their child has a choice of two things before them, they may be two different drinks, two foods, maybe two different courses in university, maybe going to this person's house, person A's house, or person B's house. Now, if you know your child, you know what they're going to choose. Does that influence in any way their decision? Like, does the child think, well, my parent already knows I'm going to do this, so why should I choose strawberry jam? I'm going to choose, you know, peanut butter. I'm going to choose that. They still choose what they like, because it in no way affects your decision. So Allah has complete knowledge of what I'm going to do today. That in no way actually affects my power to choose. Not only that, it also doesn't affect the outcome is still going to occur. The reward and punishment is still going to happen. So really, there's absolutely no effect on anything we're doing, because He knows. Now, if I, as a parent, have a little bit of knowledge of my child and I know what they're going to choose, it still doesn't affect them. He knows everything about everything. Therefore, if He followed this principle that because I know everything that's going to happen, you see, that is a human thought. That is a mortal thought. That is something that I would think as a human being. Well, if I know this is going to happen, why should I bother? I've already seen that. I've already done that. That shows different aspects. It shows a limit of knowledge. It shows a limit of patience. You know how sometimes we listen to our parents and grandparents talking and we're like, oh, I've heard that story 1,000 times. I don't want to listen to that again, because I know what's going to happen. I've seen that. I've read that story. I've seen that story. I know what's going to happen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything about everything. If He actually thought like that, like we think, then nothing would ever be created. Nothing would have ever happened. We would never have existed, because He knows everything that's going to happen. So number one, it in no way affects your decision or changes what you're going to do or gives you less ability or gives him less ability to reward you for following those actions. And also, if he did follow that, then nothing would ever exist. And I wouldn't exist, you wouldn't exist, we wouldn't be having this conversation. That's my short version of the answer, but it's such a fundamental question that I think we probably need a good, hour or two on this discussion at least, if not 10 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Brother, can you introduce yourself, Rifat Salim? Where are you? Where do you live? And
Yeah, I lived in, my name is Mohammed Saklan. I am a spouse of Rifat Salim. And I live in Markham, Ontario. And I'm doing the network engineering and working as a network engineer at Cineplex Entertainment.
mashallah, mashallah. Yes, so we want to get connected to the participants here. Can you forward your contact number and the email address to our host, Yunus Abbas? And then we all should be getting to know each other every week. And I have seen other people here, Dr. Hussein Ali Datu from Tanzania, and my cousin from Hyderabad, Masuma Switz, and Alhamdulillah, we want this group to expand and increase the knowledge of ours and to propagate. So we want to be part of this kind of a brotherhood. So every Sunday, and Maulana has agreed to make it few more Sundays before Muharram, so that we will be going for another few weeks more than 5. So it could be 8 weeks. So please help us in this. We don't want any monetary help, just your time to spread this message to our brothers and sisters and youngsters all over the world, basically. So please help us and exchange your telephone numbers and come to our WhatsApp group and communicate with us. Thank you.
I will. Thank you.
Jazakallah. Any other questions from any one of our brothers and sisters before we conclude our today's session? Maulana, please कोई दुआ पढ़ा दीजिए आप ये प्रोग्राम खत्म करने के लिए इंशाल्लाह.
اللهم ارزقنا في الدنيا زيارة الحسين وفي الآخرة شفاعة الحسين. اللهم اكتبنا من زوار الحسين واجعلنا من الباكين في عزاء الحسين. اللهم احشرنا تحت لواء الحسين. اللهم احشرنا في زمرة شيعة الحسين. اللهم ادخلنا الجنة من باب الحسين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين يا ربي يا ربي يا رب. जो परेशान हाल है बीमार है उनकी परेशानियों को उनकी बीमारी को दूर फरमा, उनको शिफायाबी अता फरमा. बारे अल्लाह ये मूजी मर्जी बला अब हमसे दूर हो रही है, इसको हमसे इस तरह से दूर कर दे कि हम अयाम अज़ा में फर्श अज़ा पे एक दूसरे के साथ जमा होके बीबी ज़हरा को उनके लाल का पुरसा दे सके. बारे अल्लाह हमारे ईमान में हमारे इल्म में इजाफा फरमा, हमारे अंदर से तकब्बुर बुग़्ज़ व कीना व हसद व कुफ्र व निफाक व शिर्क को दूर फरमा, इसको हमारी हस्ती से मिटा दे. हमारे अंदर जुस्तजू में इजाफा फरमा कि हम अपने इमाम की मारिफत हासिल करें, उसके ज़रिए से तेरी मारिफत हासिल करें और उसके ज़रिए से अपनी औलाद को भी सही रास्ते पे सिरातुल मुस्तकीम पे कायम व दायम रखें, अज़ाए शब्बीर पे और विलायत अमीरुल मोमिनीन में इनको रवा दवा रखें. बारी अल्लाह हमारे इमाम के ज़ुहूर में ताजील फरमा, हमें उनकी जान निसारों में शुमार फरमा. आपसे गुजारिश है कि तमाम हाज़रीन सामईन के मरहुमीन के लिए बिलखुसूस हमारे मुस्तफ़ा साहब ने जिनका नाम लिया था शुरू में, उनके ख़ानदान में उनके लिए भी एक सूरह फ़ातिहा और 3 दफ़ा सूरह तौहीद.
Jazakallah. So inshallah, we